Hi, and happy Monday. My name's Angelica Lamas Baker, and you've stumbled onto my podcast, The Rare Queen Out of the Blue. Hi, and welcome again to The Rare Queen Out of the Blue. My name's Angie, and I am sorry I missed last week. But I have not been feeling well. I've been kind of battling some hives and some different things. And we had a friend of the family. There was a funeral that we helped with. So I was a little out of sorts last week. But this is episode 9. You've sort of reached me. Or I'm reaching out today. I am, like I said, kind of discombobulated a little. And if you hear background noise, I have my daughter and son-in-law are doing some fall cleaning. I was about ready to say spring cleaning, but fall cleaning. Getting some stuff ready, purging some things, and just kind of re-coordinating everything. So I actually have a topic. I was thinking about a topic 2 weeks ago that I was going to do, and then another topic came across my mind, and so I wanted to do it. And so our topic today is, it's okay to start small. And I have to remind myself of this almost on a daily basis, especially with the podcast, especially with being a coach and being an advocate in different things, that it's okay to start small. I mean, people struggle with this. I struggle with this. I know a lot of people that struggle with this, especially if they are starting businesses or, again, doing advocacy efforts. Like, I'm one of these people, and I know people are people, and other people feel this way. Like, you want to see big things happen right away, and that's just not always how it works. Like, you can't always just start out like gangbusters, like everything just flowing together all the time. And so this came across to me on Facebook. A friend posted, well, actually the CEO and founder of Sanctuary Girl, the jewelry line that I sell, she posted on this, starting small. And then I had to do a Motivational Monday, and a lot of my sorority sisters, my covenant sisters, are starting small businesses or using this time to start new things, to start school, restart school, start businesses, start some dreams that they've been kind of putting on the back burner. And I feel like a lot of people in the world right now are doing that. Like, we're all kind of stuck at home and we're thinking of new things to do. I know my dad has been taking some classes for drone flying and different things because he's wanting to start some new things. And of course, he knows he started a business before. It starts small. I know my mom has kind of taken some shifts as to what she wants to do with her life. And so I have to remind everybody sometimes it's okay to start small. And I have to remind myself this all the time, especially when it comes to my advocacy or helping other people. As a life coach and as a motivational coach, as all of that, it's hard when you don't see direct results really quickly, and you don't see all those big results really quickly, and sometimes you don't even see those results, and that's okay too. So my topic today is that it's okay to start small. I use this as a Motivational Monday post, and then as I was doing the Motivational Monday, I realized, wow, this could be like a whole topic within itself for a podcast. And I'm like, okay, then I'm going to do that. It's okay to start small. I'm going to ask, does anyone else have trouble remembering this? Okay, so it's just me. Okay, I understand. I know I'm the type of person who really wants to get things going and all that sort of stuff, but yeah, it's okay. I always want big things to happen right now. But listen, it's okay to start small. I get it. Sometimes it's hard to focus on future growth when we're in the midst of small beginnings. We must remember that God works in great ways through things that appear to be small and insignificant to man. So here's the deal. So when I started this podcast, I kind of had a vision of where I was going, but not really. I thought there was something that I wanted to do in the state of the world that it was in, and kind of jumpstart some of my stuff and get myself out there. Because again, I don't know if you've listened to like the pilot episode, all that sort of stuff. I talked about how I want to be a speaker at rare disease conventions and things like that, and no one ever tags me to speak. And so that was really weighing on me, because again, I want to start big, to start big, and sometimes you have to start small. And so Ariel, who has helped me a lot, she helped with a lot of logo design for Royalty and Root, is the one who coordinated the She Is the Ish books and all that. And so she has helped me a lot. And there was one point where she said, well, if no one will give you a platform to speak, then create your own. And so that's sort of how this podcast started to be. I didn't know what direction I wanted this podcast to be, and lately it seems like the direction that it's taking is a lot about speaking about my personal journey and how my relationship and my faith, all that sort of stuff, has done that. It seems like my following is gathering more and more along that line, which is fine, because I said when I started this podcast, I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know what I was doing. It was sort of going to be a learning curve, and that's okay. I do want to say that I am super excited that a couple weeks ago I did pass the 130th mark for downloads, so 130 across 8 episodes. So that's really great. When I was researching podcasts and stuff, they say that you shouldn't tell your listeners and all that, like how small or how big your following is. But I want to keep you guys encouraged, because again, this message speaks a lot to me about it's okay to start small. When I started out, I was only getting 1 or 2 downloads, and then all of a sudden, the last handful of months, I've been getting, like I said, it's 134, I think, across 8 episodes, which is only like, I think 16 downloads per episode. And that's okay. Like, I'm being okay with that. My mom, when we started this, like, so how many downloads did you get? I mean, every day it would be like, how many downloads did you get? Oh, but then she'd be like, well, don't be one of those people that are constantly tracking your downloads and stuff. I'm like, well, Mom, how am I going to tell you if I don't constantly track it? But she knew that if I kept looking at it every day, I kept looking at the stats, I kept looking at everything, I would get discouraged, because people have a hard time understanding that it is okay to start small. And so that's what I'm talking about today. What's your small beginning? In a job, a relationship, a project? Maybe it's the beginning of recovery for your health, or recovery from addiction, or starting a new career, or perhaps it's the small beginning of a glimmer of hope in the trials and tribulations that are in your life. Whatever it is, remember the Lord and His mighty works and His faithfulness to you in your circumstances. So, starting small is good, but the problem with starting new projects, the problem with starting new careers, the problem with having to shift gears in life and start all over, basically your next chapter. I have a lot of people again in my life working on their next chapter, and that next chapter can come at any age. My daughter is now the mother of 2, and we're looking at, one's getting ready to start preschool and all that sort of, so that's a new chapter for her. And she's trying to find out what she wants to do. She really likes working in amusement parks and doing artistic things, but she's trying to figure out where her niche is, and so is her husband. And my sister-in-law is in a position where she's trying to find out her niche and what's her next chapter, because she's kind of an empty nester. Both of her kids are adults now, and one's away at college, and so she's trying to figure that out. Again, my mom is trying to figure out her next chapter, because she's in that spot where she's kind of semi-retired and trying to figure out, what do I do with my time now that I'm kind of semi-retired. Some of that has been really kind of spending some time with my grandson and hanging out with him, because it's kind of nice. And so that's where I am. There's a lot of people in my life, including myself, who are just at that next chapter and that next project or that next relationship or all those sort of things. I know a lot of people who are struggling, especially right now, with health. Either they're depressed because of being stuck at home and not really seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, or they are stuck at home where they would normally be going and going and going and going, and they're home now and they're really reflecting on, I really need to get my health back into check, and so they're getting discouraged because, I don't know, me as a rare disease patient, as a special needs person, I always see that I take one step forward and it seems like 2 steps push back. So I got my level back, and it was 2.3. My phenylalanine level was 2.3, and this is the first time in almost I want to say 1.5 to 2 years where it's actually been detectable. And I've been feeling like super great about that. And I have had all kinds of energy and all that sort of stuff. My blood pressure's been great. Everything's been great. And then all of a sudden, I'm thinking, you know, we're looking at it. My joints are still hurting really bad. My back is still hurting really bad from my arthritis. And so now we're looking at, I need to lose some weight. I'm over 200 pounds and I'm 5 foot even. I need to lose some weight. My diet before Palynziq, before all this, was very much carbohydrate driven, sugar driven, all that sort of, like my formula, my medications were sugar based, all that sort of stuff. So now I'm in a place where I'm shifting, and I took one step forward and I finally got my level kind of in check with my phenylalanine, but I'm being pushed back 2 steps because now I'm trying to lose weight and it's not working. So I know what that's like. I know what those small beginnings are, to sit here and look at, I want to do this and all that sort of stuff, and it's just not working. I put down some reasons why we don't like small beginnings. Like, why do we hate small beginnings? I came up with 4 examples of why we hate small beginnings. Just to let you know, I'm actually working off of notes this time, which is something I very rarely do. I have notes and I'm sure you probably can tell. Again, I kind of use this as a Motivational Monday post a while back. So I had some notes already, and so I wanted to expound on them for the sake of the podcast. So I do, again, I have some notes. You'll hear me kind of ticker typing away as we go, because I very much wanted to elaborate on my feelings. And again, my following has now become more of a lot of my Covenant sisters from Theta Phi Sigma Christian sorority have been listening. I am now officially an assistant chaplain on my chapter chaplain team, which is kind of interesting and neat. Never a place where I saw myself being very much, but it is where I am, and I kind of enjoy doing it. So this is sort of, I guess, a Bible study situation. Maybe that's what the podcast is turning into, how my faith and my journey as a special needs person tie in. I'm just going to break it down a little and let's see where this goes. There are 4 reasons I dug out of why we despise small beginnings. Number 1, because small beginnings don't appear to be successful. That's the truth. If you're starting small and so you're making a snowman as a kid, and you start with this tiny little snowball, and you're trying to make it into the big part of the snowman, and you just start, and it seems like it's going to take forever. And we get discouraged that as a little kid. You kind of get distracted, you get discouraged, you're like, how am I going to make this tiny little thing, this huge thing, all by myself? Because we don't see the success behind the smallness. We tend to like the big scene, the big problem, the big building, the finished product. Like, we want things to be finished right away. We see all the big picture, but we never like to look at what goes on behind the scenes and how you got that snowman from the tiny little place where you started, the brick that started it all. So when I was researching this, it brought me to the story of Zechariah. And so again, we tend to like the big scene, the big program, the big building, the finished product, just as the people in Zechariah's day. They scoffed at the small beginnings of the rebuilding of the temple. So Zechariah was rebuilding the temple, and they were all like, oh, it's so small and it's never going to be done, because he was very much about, we need to listen to how God is going to lead us in doing this. And they all wanted to rush and get it done and see the big glorious temple, because back then temples were huge and gold, all that sort of stuff. So we tend to dislike small beginnings because they don't appear to be very successful, especially when you're looking from the outside looking in. When people see you starting small and they're like, you're never going to accomplish this, you're never going to achieve, like, you're just starting so tiny and it's never going to get there, it's never going to get there. It's kind of like that with this podcast. I have people tell me, you're never going to get a following, you're never going to get, but again, it's not about them, it's about me, and it's about my relationships with my listeners. It's about my relationships with myself, and that I have committed to doing this. And so while I do get discouraged, I have to not look at the big picture and think, oh, well, You know, mom's always asking, well, how do podcast people get paid, blah, 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 like sponsors and things like that. I get that, but I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on step by step, one step at a time. That's what I'm focusing on. Number 2, because small beginnings are hard. Point blank, small beginnings are hard. Let's call it what it is. It is hard. They require work, and we are prone to spiritual laziness. When I was reading a lot of this story and small beginnings, all sort of circled around church plants and things like that, and it works that way in every business and everything that you're trying to do. In a small church plant, you can't just blend in with the big crowd like at a big church and be anonymous, be a bystander. Everyone's participation is needed. This is true. This is true of everything. When you start small, when you start a small company, when you start a small family, when you start small with anything, a small podcast, it requires a lot of work. You can't just hide. You can't hide in the background. Everybody is important. And this goes back to 1 Corinthians 12. It goes to speaking about your spiritual gifts. And spiritual gifts are what they are. If you're a Christian, you know, with spiritual gifts, everybody is blessed with some sort of gift. You have your people who are gifted with hospitality. You have your people who are gifted with speaking. You have your people who are gifted with all sorts of things. Everyone has gifts, and gifts are talents. It's that way with small companies. It's that way with podcasts. It's that way with relationships. It's that way with everything. Small beginnings are hard, especially when there's only a handful of you. You have to know your strengths, and you have to be able to rely on the person next to you and be your sister's keeper, your brother's keeper, and help that person. It requires interpersonal relationships, and that is in itself hard. If you're starting a small company, you have to rely on those people who you are working with, that their strengths are opposite of your strengths. Because if y'all have the same strength and the same weaknesses, nothing's going to get accomplished. That's the truth. It's that way in a marriage. If both a husband and a wife have the same strengths and the same weaknesses, you guys are always just going to be having the same things over and over and over again. My husband and I, while we do have likes and dislikes that are the same, we are, in contrast, kind of polar opposites. My husband is very mechanical. He's very hands-on, while we are both very creative. He is very much a hands-on. I've got to hands-on about fixing things, bicycles. Like, he can take something apart and put it back together. I can't do that. I do need to look at having the steps put beside me, all that sort of stuff. But those are his strengths. It's like that in a marriage. You start small in a marriage. You start with just 2 people. You don't start with a whole family, because it takes work. It takes work for you guys to get to know each other, to learn what each other's strengths and gifts are. It's that way in a small company. If everybody is really good at advertising, but nobody is really good at producing the product, then that's a problem. If everybody's really good at producing the product, but not good at the marketing aspect, then that's a problem. You know, my dad and stepmom ran a very successful business for many, many years. And that's because my dad had his strengths and my stepmom has her strengths. And so that's what it has to be. You can't all be the same thing. So it's going to take hard work. It's going to take everybody tapping into their talents and understanding where their weaknesses are and being able to lean on each other. It's hard. So number 3 is to why we despise small beginnings. Because we tend to think small beginnings are unimportant. But every great work of the Lord starts out small. Think about it. It takes faith in the promises of the people that you're working with. It takes faith in everything. Small beginnings take faith. And we much rather live by sight. That's the truth. We would much rather live by the physical things that we can see. My husband is very much that person who wants to, not that he doesn't have faith, but he's very much the person who wants to see the end product. He wants to see what's going to happen. Not that he doesn't have faith that things are going to turn out. It's just he very much is that logical thinker that he needs to be able to physically see an outcome in order to understand it. But here's the deal. When you're starting small, you have to have a lot of faith, whether that's in church, whether that's in business, whether that's in a relationship. You don't know how a relationship's going to turn out when you start. That's the truth. No one 18 years ago, almost 19 years ago, wow, 19 years. So Dean and I met, it will be 19 years this Thanksgiving weekend. We will have met and we will have known each other 19 years. And when we started out, I will tell you, and I have said it before, a lot of people did not think we would go the distance. Like, they thought we were two polar opposites. Everybody thought there was too much going on there and too much baggage we both had. But we had to have faith that we were meant to be together and that we were good for each other. And that is so hard to see. Wow. Because it's funny, because Dean and I have been thinking about this and talking about this because we want to move to a bigger home for our family. Again, my daughter and her husband and kids live with us, and we want to have bigger and better and have faith. And so we're thinking it's almost like we're starting over ourselves. Like, we just got a new car and we're starting small, and it's almost like it's really weird after 19 years that's almost like we're starting over again. And all those things about getting a house, it speaks to me about this whole situation. I just realized that every great work started out small. The Sistine Chapel started with a single brush stroke. Michelangelo's David started with one little hit of the chisel. I mean, everything starts small. Everything in life starts with the first step. I don't know anything in the world that starts big. Let's see. The scripture that goes with this is 2 Corinthians 5:7. For we live by faith and not by sight. That's a big thing, faith. You know, I talk a lot about faith and hope when I do my ladies ministry, when I talk with people about faith and hope, when I talk about this with other rare disease and special needs patients, I talk a lot about faith and hope, because you can't have hope without faith, but you can have faith without hope, because hope is just faith for the future. You can't see it. You hope for the best, or you want the best for the future, and so that's hope. And faith is one of those things that is, obviously you can't see it. Faith just has to be. And I have friends that are very scientific and analytical about that. Like, how can you believe in something you can't see? How can you? Just because. I mean, you can't see your kids all the time, but you have to believe that you've taught them correct and that they're doing well, because my friends' kids are away at college now, and as a parent they worry, and so you have to believe that you've guided them the right way, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, that's faith. You have to believe in the unseen. You can't always believe in the things that you physically see, and your faith is whatever it needs to be rooted in for you. I am a very firm believer in that. You know, I do speak that I have a lot of friends that are not necessarily believers, and this is how I kind of talk with them about what the difference between faith and all that sort of stuff. So my last point for the reason why we despise small beginnings is number 4. We tend to despise the day of small beginnings because we are often surrounded by negative, grumpy, adversarial people who prefer to find faults and delight in criticism rather than looking for evidences of God's grace. And they discourage us. That's the truth. We tend to surround ourselves with people who criticize us. Now, here's the deal. We do tend to do that, and it is good to have a person who is that person who is the realist, who is that's Dean, who is pragmatic, and who is that's not going to happen, and who can see the negatives. But we cannot always steep everything in life in the negative. We have to be able to see the positives and believe that we are doing what we are called to do. Does that mean that it's going to be easy? No. Does that mean that all those people who are negative and find faults and criticisms in everything that we do or in the things that we do is going to change? Are they going to change? No. That's the truth. Dean wakes up every day, always says something negative. That's just the way he is. It's too cold. We have this, and this to do. This is what's happening. He goes to bed saying something negative. That's just his personality, you know, and that's okay. But it can be very discouraging. So here's the deal. You need to surround yourself with people that are going to encourage you, not just discourage. And Dean has very much been starting to try to encourage and be understanding, because again, I'm trying to do this podcast. I have a very small amount, and of course Dean's normal go-to is, well, then if you're not people aren't listening, if you're not being successful, then why are you doing it? Why? That would be like you're just wasting your time. However, now he's like, well, people are listening and it's good, you know, just keep going, keep at it. And that's a good little transition for him. But you have to surround yourself with people that aren't always going to be negative and adversarial. Like I said, it is good to have those pragmatic people who are going to be, okay, well, you want to do XYZ, well, these 5 things could happen. I get that. But I also have to have faith that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's okay to have a realistic view of the world. That's what Dean tells me. I'm just being real. I'm just, being honest and real. I get that. It's okay to be that, but you have to also believe in faith that you are doing what you're supposed to do. For my 4 things that I have of why we despise the small beginnings, I have 4 reasons we shouldn't despise the day of small things. Number 1, because this is how God works. In the natural world, God takes a little pine cone and from it grows a mighty sequoia tree. Through Abraham's descendants, it was promised to him that all nations of the earth would be blessed. Through a ragtag group of disciples that are believers all over the world who trust in the finished works of Jesus, his death and resurrection, the Spirit of the Lord was at work in them building his kingdom. Remember when the apostles were later persecuted in Acts 5, a Pharisee wisely stated, "Men of Israel, take care of what you are about to do with these men. I tell you to keep away from these men and let them alone. For if this plan or this undertaking is of man, it will fail. But if it is of God, you will not be able to overthrow them. You might even be found opposing God." And that's in Acts 5:35 through 39. So here's the deal. You know the saying, God works in mysterious ways. This is how God works. God plants a seed that grows bigger. Either you're going to take that trail and go where you're being led to grow into something bigger, or you're going to be stalemated and be one of those negative people who feel like nothing is ever going to happen for them. At some point you need to take a leap of faith. And that's okay. It's okay to worry about taking that leap of faith, but you have to understand that this is how God works. This is how the world works. Nothing was accomplished in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day. This is how it works. This not just how God works, but this is just how life works. This is how everything works. And because this is how everything works, this is how God works. It's all there. You just have to be able to take that first step. And it's always that first step, or plant that first seed, or do that first little thing that gets you there. Number 2, because the Lord wants us to see his wondrous works and be able to later tell others of his faithfulness. Now this comes from Psalms 105:2. Sing to him, praise to him, tell all of his wondrous acts. So here's the deal. Not only is this the way that God works, but he wants you to be able to tell your story of how it worked for you and how his work have happened because of his faithfulness and your faithfulness in him. The Lord wants us to see how he works, to see how the world works, to see success. That's called a testimony. That's what it is. It's called a testimony. Your small beginning is a testimony that may help somebody else. You don't have to help 100 people. You don't have to even see sometimes that this has helped somebody. You just have to throw out that testimony, because if it helped you, it's going to help somebody else. I say this with my rare disease and special needs families all the time, because I hear it echoed. I get to talk to so many different people who are affected by so many different things. And here's the deal. So I hear the stories echoed over and over and over again. And I tell people, you just need to tell your story. You just have to tell your story to the person sitting next to you. Even if they aren't what you think of as special needs, your story may touch them in some way. You may touch them to maybe get more in touch with how they could help the community. You may be helping them through something that they're doing or they're going through. He wants you to tell your story. He wants you to start small because it's going to grow into something bigger. Number 3, because God desires us to see how He is faithful to His promises. God desires us to see how He is faithful. Should be happy about small beginnings, because if you've had a thought put into your mind to do something, like I kind of wanted to do this podcast, and I did have quite a few people tell me why, like, what's a podcast? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to write? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that? And, especially because I couldn't get a platform to speak. I couldn't get any conferences to book me. I couldn't get any. So why would you keep pushing? Why would you keep doing what you're trying to do? Because it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about me helping somebody. And even if that's one person, I am helping. Because I know the things that I've gone through, and I haven't talked about it a lot, but I know the things that I've gone through, and that I should have died a handful of times going through the Palynziq study and the things that happened to me and going into anaphylaxis. And I know that I was told that my story was not over, and that I need to pursue what I need to pursue. And if people are not going to allow me to do, because people are negative and cliquish and things like that, then I need to still find a way to do it. And even if it's small, I need to be faithful, because I was promised that my story was not over. I was promised that I would do so much more with my life if I just did what I'm supposed to do. And part of that was starting to write again. Part of that was this podcast. I don't need to see that I'm helping people. I don't need to see all of this, because I need to have faith that I'm doing what I was promised to do. Because He desires us to see how faithful He is to us. Number 4, lastly, we should never despise the day of small beginnings, because the Lord never despises that day. He delights in even the slightest glimmer of desire for His mercy and grace. He has flung open wide the door of forgiveness and says, "Come all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. This is the will of my Father, that everyone who looks on the Son and believes in Him should have eternal life, and He will rise him up on the last day." When you look at just life in general, we all started small. And we should never despise starting over and starting small again. Whatever that journey is for you guys. That's the end all be all of this. Whatever that journey is, whether it's getting out of a bad relationship and starting over and seeing that you're starting all over again from scratch, and that can be very discouraging. Whether it's starting a new business because maybe one failed, or maybe that door closed and you've had to start over again. Remember that we all started small. Even in life, we all started small. Not a one of us started as adults. Not one of us started with wisdom and all these sort of things. We weren't born with this. We had to grow into it. And that's all you're doing now, is growing more. I always, tell people, because, well, I'm having to start over. I'm like, so you're writing a new chapter. You're just writing a new chapter in your book. If a book only had one chapter, it would be so terribly boring. So starting over and starting small is just starting a whole new chapter. And that's okay. Your parents were excited the day you were born, and you started out small. Your parents were probably excited when they found out they were going to have you, and you started out small. So why not be excited when you're going to start something small again? Now granted, again, it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard. And that's okay. It's okay for it to be hard. It's okay for you to get discouraged. It's okay. Because, let's face it, Nothing in life is. I got very discouraged last week when I was not feeling well enough to record. And that's because I have been promising that I myself and my mom that I will sit down and I will record several episodes in a day. Like I'll do 2 episodes a day and record, so I have them scheduled and ready and I can edit when I'm not feeling well. And I find that I feel like I'm letting myself down. I'm letting my mom down because I'm not doing it. And then I miss a Monday, like I missed last Monday, because I very much wanted to record, and then things happened, and I needed to be other places, and then I felt very discouraged. And I knew that I needed to continue. So, again, I'm very, very sorry about not having an episode for you last week. I kind of get just a little discouraged myself with small beginnings. But then I look at where I started with 1 or 2 downloads, which I knew was my mom and my aunt listening, to 134 now. That's a big step. So it's okay. It's okay to start small. I'm okay with that. Again, the Sistine Chapel was not painted in one day. It started with a single brush stroke. So it's okay to start small. It's okay to be discouraged, but we need to understand that it's going to be okay if we are doing what we are supposed to be doing. If it's just that little voice pushing you because I feel like you should go this direction, then do it. Take a leap of faith, whatever that is. And don't be discouraged about it. Don't hate your small beginning, because everybody started small. Everybody had to take a leap of faith. Everybody who you see is successful in the world started somewhere. So that is my podcast for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. And I hope that you have a blessed week. And I hope that you guys are looking forward to the holidays. I know this year is a little different than most, but I really hope you guys are. I will talk with you guys next Monday. Vio con Dios.